All right. So I'm placing my hands on my heart, taking in that deep breath of love and gratitude. So grateful for this opportunity to come together to be the two or more who are gathered in the name and the nature of love. Grateful for the ability to meet virtually in this way, especially during this time of isolation, seeming isolation. There's no isolation in reality. We're grateful for all of our earthly and heavenly helpers. We ask that they join us now, blessing technology that we're using, blessing each and every one of us, all those who will listen later, leading and guiding us in each and every moment. We're grateful for this opportunity to be a healing presence for all of humanity in the world at this time. Grateful to be able to open up our heart space. And we're grateful that we get to share the benefits of our healing and expansion with everyone because we're one with them. In grace and gratitude, we let it be, and so it is. Amen. So we are in chapter 15, section 4. Lots of good stuff in there. Would anyone like to begin our sharing? Go ahead, Christine.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
What is littleness?
For me, my understanding of littleness is any time that I am not accepting and stepping into the fullness of who and what I am, which is a creature of love and light, a part of God within me. Anytime that I am allowing my ego to run the show and allowing ego to hold me back from what I'm being called to do.
Okay.
That's my experience of it. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share about? Go ahead, Phil.
Hey everyone, good morning. Good to see all of you. Oh, I'm a queen of littleness. That's why I can talk about it. So, anytime I feel totally disconnected, I am in my littleness. Anytime I feel that things should be different than what it is, I am in my littleness. Anytime I am in this place of like irritation when people are talking about this coronavirus and how miserable and terrible it is and bringing out fear, and I feel that strong judgment and like want to say, shut up, I am in my littleness. So, hope that makes sense to you.
Beautiful, Phil. Thank you. Caroline, and then Robin.
No, I was just.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hi. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Christine's question really hit home with me right now because I woke up feeling really bad this morning. I felt this fear in my chest and I did not feel good. And I think regarding littleness and then Linda, your description of littleness, I think that has to do with something that I'm going through right now. And maybe it's a resistance within me against something that I want to maybe learn about and practice on myself, to help myself in some ways with anxiety and certain things. But anyways, that could be what it is. It's the resistance in me. and maybe my ego is trying to scare me off of it. And I guess the only thing to do is just push through it, or just keep going, or I don't know. So I'm working on that this morning. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. But yeah, thank you, Christine. That was really good. And Linda, yeah, excellent. Bill, you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And I see Corinne wrote, for me, it's when I say it's too difficult or I can't do it. Absolutely. Leslie and then Mitzi. I can try and help you. Hold on.
Computer.
There you go. I gotcha.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on a different computer, so I'm not sure where the mute is. I couldn't, oh, there it is on the far left. I see it now, thank you. Hello, everybody, good afternoon. Good morning, wherever you're at. I just wanted to say that I really liked paragraph 6, sentences basically 5 through 8. And it just starts out by saying the holy instant is a time in which you receive and give perfect communication. Your mind is open to both give and receive. It is the recognition that all minds are in communication. It therefore seeks to change nothing, but merely accept everything. And I just thought that was so powerful, because whether it's the coronavirus or whether it's my husband saying something I didn't like and I want him to respond different, it's so true that whatever's in front of us, that's what we need to accept. We don't need to change it. And to me, those moments when I can truly accept reality with love in my heart and with ease and grace, to me, that's a holy instant. And I never understood that before I read this section. I've always been like, what is a holy instant? I don't think I've ever had a holy instant, but I have had a holy instant. I have responded with ease and grace before, and I have been in the present moment, accepting in the present moment. And when I say in the present moment, there's nothing to fear. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and that's your stepping out of littleness when you're able to respond that way. Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie. Mitzi.
Well, I thought that was a great question. What is littleness? Because I wondered about that myself. I'm always trying to really figure things out. So, which I know is an issue, is an issue. Get to the knowing, but I just am experiencing that when I recognize that I'm coming from fear or resistance, that is littleness in me. That's how I'm interpreting it right now. And I do find littleness is somewhat it's a mindset, and it's also kind of tied up with feeling vulnerable. If I feel vulnerable and I'm making decisions out of fear, or I'm resisting something, like making the highest and best decision or choice, then I'm forgetting how magnificent the power within me is. And that and so I'm trying to like figure things out from my own plan and my own ego understanding. And so sometimes littleness, it's not exactly pettiness, but once in a while it is pettiness, you know. And I felt this week that it was really a test of my commitment, my willingness to extend love unconditionally to everybody who doesn't think the way I do, you know. And so that could be from what would seem to be big to, you know, family members and I realized that that I had a lot of opinions, but I also had a lot of fear around if things continue in a way that I was looking at it, that it would be overwhelming again. Then I would feel little, I would feel vulnerable, I would feel afraid. And it brought me back to that. And so I'm really grateful for that awareness, because I had to give that resistance over and that willingness because it wasn't there. I had to give it over to the holiness. So that's my experience. Thank you. And I love you all, and I hope that you're holding up well this week.
Thank you.
Well, and I think there's some really good points that were made. I really enjoyed this reading, and the word fear kept coming up with people talking, and I think that is an emotion associated with this feeling of littleness or acting out in littleness. And I think maybe now during this time of isolation, we're more confronted with our own thoughts, so we're more aware of it than ever. It's kind of like we're under a microscope with it.
Absolutely. Yep. Our stuff is in our face. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Deborah. Diane.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Christine, for that starting us out with that beautiful question. And it's just been really helpful to hear how everybody is interpreting the word littleness. And what I'd had ticked off here in my my manual is paragraph 3, and it's sentence 4. I call you to fulfill your holy part in the plan that he has given to the world for its release from littleness. God would have his host abide in perfect freedom. And for me, the littleness and resistance is huge. So I can really get that one for sure. But the other one for me that comes forward is unworthiness. So when I'm feeling in my littleness, it's usually around unworthiness. And in the same paragraph, the first sentence, be humble before him and yet great in him. And I feel sometimes really overwhelmed by the idea of worthiness, that I am worthy to be a part of God's plan. I'm worthy to have a divine blueprint for my life. And so it's a bit of a reach for me, but that's where my littleness comes through, in feeling totally unworthy of what I'm reading and what's God's promise to me. I'm still, my unworthiness does come out in this, and it results in a lot of harsh critic and harsh self-judgment. And so that's where, excuse me, a lot of my forgiveness comes in, is the judgment toward myself, and of course easily judging others as well. And the other thought I had while I was listening to everybody was around, for me, I guess where I get a little more compassionate towards myself is when I think about littleness being in the 3D world. And I have created this 3D mind, and it's really, and that's where I feel like I can be compassionate and say, Diane, it's okay. You're in a 3D world. You can't quite see yet beyond in time and space. I don't have that mind yet. And so I feel like compassionate toward myself when I choose littleness, or I allow the resistance to overtake me. That's what came to me when I was hearing everybody talk. I thought, yeah, together we're all here in 3D. And as Jennifer said in our class last week, which I really appreciated, she said that she has glimpses of the 5-dimensional world. So I really appreciated that comment, which helps me with my littleness. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Diane.
Yeah, I'm wondering if another form of littleness might be wanting things to be different than what they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if we truly believe and have faith and trust that everything is here to help us, then even the most excruciating experiences, we won't, even though they may not be comfortable, we may even hate being in that space, but we will trust that it's for our highest good somehow. And we don't know how it is for our highest good, but it absolutely is for our highest good, even if we can't see it.
And another thought that I just had as someone was talking was that resistance, another form of resistance seems to be reluctance. Maybe it's a little lesser form, but it still seems like it's in the family.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Deborah. Yes. Go ahead, Franca.
Just another aspect of littleness, but I wanted to thank everyone for their input first. And people have touched on this. Like last night, I just had overwhelming sadness and I couldn't seem to shake it. I was watching television, just a program, a drama that I generally like, and I wasn't too happy with the ending and I felt sad. Then I watched the news and I really felt sad. And so I have to recognize that the sadness was an expression of littleness in that I wasn't happy with how things were evolving. And so a sentence that struck out for me was in paragraph 4, sentence 2. This you will recognize in the holy instant in which you willingly and gladly would give over every plan but his. Okay, so it's accepting what is and knowing that it's for our highest and best.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to see that. That's why having trust and faith, that's why reading that trust, development of trust section in the manual for teachers is so helpful, because it helps us to open up our heart to accept what we can judge as unacceptable. I know I had just a small experience of that. I don't think I mentioned it last week. But Caroline knows about it because she posted something in Facebook and I kind of explained what was going on. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been waking up almost every night around 4 a.m. And when I wake up in the middle of the night, I pray. That's just my go-to. I just start praying. But I was getting irritated because I was waking up around 4 a.m. every morning. And sometimes I couldn't go back to sleep. And, you know, my attachment to my sleep schedule, I was, you know, confronted with that. But like the third time it happened, I just asked, why is this happening? What is this for? And I was guided to go to my Chinese circadian rhythm chart that correlates with the organs from when I worked at the Holistic Health Clinic. And 4 a.m. is lung time. And this virus appears to manifest in the lungs and affect the lungs. And so after that, I was happy to be able to wake up at that time and pray for the lungs of humanity. And most nights I'm able to fall back to sleep, and I'm sleeping a little later than I would like to, but that's all right. And sometimes like today, I don't, I wake up and it's like, okay, I'm awake. But it's just being willing to know that there is something good coming from what is happening. I just had to trust that. So I had a lot that was highlighted in here. So in paragraph 7, near the end and into paragraph 8, I highlighted, you wonder why it is that you are not in full communication with those around you and with God. Every thought you would keep hidden shuts communication off because you would have it so. It is impossible to recognize perfect communication while breaking communication holds value to you. Ask yourself honestly, would I want to have perfect communication? And am I wholly willing to let everything that interferes with it go forever? And it's just, he's asking for our willingness. How willing are we? Are we even willing to be a little bit willing? Leslie.
Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to, this is a little off subject of the chapter. I just wanted to briefly mention something. I was on a Zoom call with Morgan. I think Christine, you were on it too, weren't you? Okay, yeah. And one thing that was, we did a divine experiment and then we did the blessing prayer, but we tweaked it a little bit for the coronavirus. But one thing that really came out of that conversation for me was the thought that the coronavirus is a way of uniting the world. Whereas if we were to have like a third world war and it would be a lot of us against them, that it might feel global, but it would be so much more painful. And I just thought, and somebody said, maybe this is a much more gently way. Maybe this is gentle. Maybe we are experiencing the gentleness now of the global world coming together. And I just thought that was really powerful. I just wanted to share that. And I'm sorry, Christine, I think you had your hand up before me.
Thank you, Leslie. Go ahead, Christine.
That's okay. Well, thanks for your reading there, Linda, too. We're bouncing around a little bit. Yeah, so here I'm going to bounce. Sorry. I guess it's a day of bouncing. You know what? I didn't want to belabor it, but the other thing that came up to me with the littleness as everybody was talking was, and sorry, like we'll try and keep this part short so we can get back to the chapter, but so how do what's ego versus littleness? Like, what's the difference between the two then? And then the other part to the ego question was, what is the real soul purpose of our ego outside of just to really mess us up? Is how I feel. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I actually was this morning looking in my mind a bit for clarification to that. And I'm not trying to wander off because I'm connecting it to the littleness, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Would anyone like to speak to that? Corinne and then Amanda.
To me, I think that ego actually drives littleness because that's what it's really all about. It's the idea that we've separated from God
Mm-hmm.
and that this word USURP, usurping the power of God, which makes me feel guilty because, now I think I can do everything, and that's all make believe. That's none of it is real. And so that was given the definition of an ego, which is totally someone divided against itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that drives everything very, very, very viciously. And I think the more you grab onto it, the worse it gets over time. And it has been such a big undoing, which is still, of course, ongoing for me. But I really, through this journey, did not realize how deeply entangled I was because of all these beliefs that, first of all, were handed on to me. And then, of course, I just nourished them. So why it is the way it is, I don't know, but that's what I've come to understand about it.
Yeah, thank you, Corinne. Amanda.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I don't know what time of day it is for you all. It's morning here. So, first of all, Rand, your cat is so cute. Okay, just had to say that. I used to have a cat that looked very much like that, and I missed him so much. So I think that I too, Christine, am wondering, yeah, maybe is there a difference between the, yeah, littleness and ego? Because I think it seems like they're sort of the same idea. Is that, am I thinking of that right? I mean, it seems to me like littleness is pretty much just the ego thoughts, you know, that the, and something I always loved that Wayne Dyer said is that ego, like if you want to take the letters and make it an acronym, it's edging God out. And I just absolutely love that. Like, that's what I always think of it as, you know, it's like edging God out, and that's that littleness, you know. And then I just wanted to share, that's my thought on that, but there was so many things in this. I love the Holy Instant section. There were so many things that I highlighted, but one of the things that I love, and I hear Jennifer say this all the time, it's sort of like the hope of this section, you know, is in paragraph 9. It says, the necessary condition for the Holy Instant does not require that you have no thoughts that are not pure, which is the ego or the littleness. But it does require that you have none that you would keep. And Jennifer says that all the time. I hear her say that all the time in her podcast and in our classes. I've thought about that. You know, I loved that it was here it was, you know, and I've thought about that line so many times because I've heard her say that. No, that it does not require that you have no thoughts that are not pure, but it does require that you have none that you would keep. I just could say that over and over again and really ponder that, because it's like forgiveness for yourself is in there. There's so many things in there in those two sentences. You know, the atonement is in there. You know, the idea that we're living in this illusion and we have these ego thoughts is in there, and that it's okay because this is where it wouldn't be there if we weren't living in this illusion, I guess, you know. So the atonement wouldn't even be necessary. And I think it goes on to say that in that paragraph. But you know, so I love like the what's the word I'm looking for? The gentleness or the acceptance of making mistakes in every moment, but then we have that, you know, but we have that opportunity to not keep that, to hold on to that littleness or that ego or thought or whatever, that we have the opportunity to hand it over, right? That was my big takeaway from it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. I like the line after that too, where he says, innocence is not of your making. It is given you the instant you would have it. So that is a holy instant where we get to have that moment of choice. So my feeling and understanding is that the ego thought system is just what makes meaning of all of the experiences that we have in this illusion of the world that we're in. And the littleness is when we energize that ego thought system and start to believe it and act from that space. But I can choose again at any moment. And that's a holy instant.
Okay, can I ask another question? Thank you for that, though. That was a real wow. I like the ego makes the meaning and the littleness is energizing it, because that is a distinction, because I was confusing the two. So that's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I also this morning talking about the innocence is not of your making. It is given you the instant you would have it. That's your willingness to accept that you are innocent, no matter what you've ever done, correct? I was struggling with that this morning, trying to stay in the innocence of the judgments of the past and the mistakes, or feeling that they're mistakes, but they're no mistakes. Anyways, I just thought I'd share that, but thank you. It's perfect.
Yeah, and that's where that that prayer from the Course, I must have decided wrongly because I am not at peace, really comes in handy, because it says right there that I can ask the Holy Spirit to undo all of the consequences of my wrong decision if I will let him. And I choose to let him by allowing him to decide for God, for me. So our only responsibility is to be open to receive it and allow it.
Because technically a wrong decision is not a wrong decision.
Right. We were just learning in that moment. That's just how we were choosing to learn in that moment.
Right. So our guilt and shame and blame is our judgments of what we believe.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I just have to say it because it's, I'm pounding it in for myself.
Yeah. Yep. Phil, then Penelope, and then Mitzi.
Thanks, everyone. One of the things that resonated for me when Diane said, to have compassion because we are in this 3D world. And that was the holy instant for me. We might be in that whole triggered thing the whole day, but to recognize and hold yourself in compassion rather than further judging yourself or saying, there I go again, which is my favorite thing. Instead of doing that, but saying, oh, I am going to hold myself in compassion, knowing that this is hard. And that is the holy instant. And actually, that really connected me with that, the necessary condition for the holy instant does not require that you have no thoughts that are not pure. And so when Diane shared, that's where I had highlighted that, and that made a lot more sense to me. And the way fact that it also goes on to say, but it does not require that you have none that you would keep. So, yeah, I might have that, but I don't have to hold on. But the more compassion I bring, that becomes my holy instant. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Phil. Penelope.
Linda, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure how to word it. There are schools of thought that that initially the ego was there to assist us to live this life of duality. But then over time, there was a further splitting from the split mind. And so basically I'm asking, is that correct? And also, within that then further splitting, is that then what created more of this almost like the ego's almost just like running like riot. I don't really know how else to express it. So that's why we're then experiencing more of this, as is being talked about today, and in this section of the text, the littleness, and at its worst the which isn't in this part of the text, but at its worst is the viciousness. That's actually come about from, so originally it was there to help us to live this sense of this belief that we were separate, but it's been allowed to then run to the extent that we now are experiencing that we're seeing in the world, and that actually this is also what the coronavirus is about. I don't know if you can maybe say.
As far as the ego helping us, I think that the ego thought system can try and convince us that it is here to help us. I mean, in some ways, like when you're a child, if you touch something that's hot and you realize it's hot and you have that experience of hot, then it's going to warn you the next time you're near something is hot not to touch it. I think in that sense, it can be helpful. But we can move beyond that even, because, you know, when you think about people that walk over hot coals, how can they do that? You know, it's still the same hot that we may have touched when we were children and went, oh, that's hot, we're never going to do that again. But we can overcome it if we are willing to change our minds about it. And I think one of the examples that has helped me to kind of grasp that is I remember reading about a study that was done with people that have multiple personalities. And like in one personality, they can have the appearance of having heart disease and diabetes. And then in another personality that doesn't have heart disease and diabetes, those symptoms seem to disappear. You know, and it's not anything that they can really explain, except for the mind does not believe that it has heart disease and diabetes. So as far as the ego being helpful, I don't really believe that. And I could be wrong. But when I hear studies like that, it makes me really question, you know, can I really go on any experience or belief I have from the past that that's going to be true every time? I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. So then can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So for instance, then what about something where it was like, it brings in, say, fight or flight? Because doesn't that's of the ego. So for instance, if it's like about, say, my safety in that sense, that's the ego though as well, isn't it?
Well, I think that that's more of a reaction of the body than the ego thought system. I mean, the ego can still react. Like if you see a tiger out in the wild, you're going to run away from it. and the body would do that automatically anyways, because it would have that sense of danger. I don't know. I really just don't know. I don't know. Does anybody else have any thoughts, or Mitzi?
I do have some thoughts on that, and a little bit of experience about the idea around fear, and what some ideas are that we're only born with certain instinctual fears, like fear of falling. That's universal. There are some fears that we have that are from our history of feeling unsafe. That's kind of, I would say, filed in a folder inside our brains, that when somebody does something, or we're in a situation, let's say someone cuts us off in traffic, that is what I'll call a manufactured fear, a situational fear, but it's not an instinctual fear like running from a tiger in there. So that's and the cutting us off in traffic is often related to what we think might happen, like that I'll be maimed or I'll be hurt, and then unconscious goes from there. It'll ruin my life, or those sorts of things. So that's when we have an opportunity, after the adrenaline has circulated through our body, which takes about 90 seconds, to have a clarity of, and then come back to think with our more spirit mind than the ego mind, that might just continue to go into rage or stay in a panic. We have an opportunity there to have awareness. So that's something I would, I kind of think of here. And so I had some other thoughts around, well, I think I'll just leave it at that. I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about the whole fear thing with the coronavirus and all the fear that's so prevalent on the planet right now. And I'm thinking kind of the primordial fear for everyone is the fear of death. So I think that's what it stems from. I think it's kind of a manifestation of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The fear of the unknown, the fear of the future, and the uncertainty of it.
It's kind of like a collective fear now on the planet. So
right. Yeah.
I have to say, though, this call, I really feel like we're dissipating some of that, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yay. Yes. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for affirming that. Mitzi.
I did want to say something about this idea of the meaning that we make of it, because we're all talking to a lot of people, and people have their different perspectives on what is the meaning of this. And some people want to make it the apocalypse. Some people want to make it, oh, we're all going to be together. But I hear, many, many different interpretations and meanings. And behind that, my thought is that I would like to be right about my meaning. I would like to know it. And so that idea that we don't know what anything is for, sitting with that and letting go of trying to get wrapped up in our heads to try and make meaning of it so that we can feel safe, so that we can be right. All those ego patterns and habits come up. The ego uses all the material from our past. And if we're basing how we're thinking on material from our past, we're probably not going to be at peace. That's my idea.
Yeah, thank you, Mitzi. Diane.
Well, it also brought me to that teaching of Jennifer's. I think it's hers, where everything is helpful and everything is here to help us. And I really, whether or not the ego is here to help us or not, I agree with Mitzi. I think that's a little bit, I don't know whether I can completely get my mind around that. However, when my ego thought system is coming up, if I can perceive it as being helpful to me at that moment, I can get through things with a bit easier, a bit more compassion. And so I am finding myself, and often I don't, I'm in anger or whatever, and this is wrong and it's not right. But if I can kind of choose that it's here to help me, and then I've got this from Jennifer, which I find very helpful when my egoic thought patterns come up, is if I can start talking to them like a young child, somebody who's about 3 or 4 years old. And so that's where, for me, it comes in helpful. If I can sort of address those thought patterns of, sweetheart, darling, let's just sit yourself down. You're going to be okay. I can often get myself through some of these really harsh patterns that I have. So I'm trying to look at it as being more helpful than not helpful, to develop more of the compassion within myself. The compassionate, loving heart. That's what I'm going for.
Amen. Thank you, Diane. I just want to see if Holly, Robin, Kathleen, or Rand would like to share anything, add anything to the conversation, or ask any questions. Just let us know how you're doing.
I was just gonna, I'm sorry, was it Deborah that was just speaking?
That was Diane.
Diane, sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, it's funny that she just brought up that Jennifer talking about speaking to ourselves like we would speak, because she just talked about that last night in our year 1 class. I thought, oh, reinforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Rand.
Yeah, I'm just, I haven't been in the class for a few weeks because I had a caregiver at that time, and today was the first day I had a free time to get back. So welcome to be back, but I hadn't read the material, so I'm just listening to all the wisdom from everybody here, and enjoying everybody else in the class who have their cats on their laps too. And thank you to be here.
Thank you, Rand. Yeah, we're full of wisdom, aren't we?
Yeah, you are.
We're full of it.
We're full of it.
Definitely. Yeah, we're full of something.
Full of something, yeah.
Robin or Kathleen, would either of you like to share anything? Yeah, let me see if I can try and unmute you, Kathleen. There you are. I saw your lips moving. You're good.
Yeah, I couldn't find the link on my laptop, so I'm on my phone for the first time. No, my Google Calendar said it was at 1, and so I didn't get on until 12:30 anyway. So I completely missed the whole conversation. Well, I just think that this is a really good time for everyone to share, to know that we don't have any private thoughts, and to be willing to be in perfect communication with each other and with God. And the Course says how easy it is to be in complete communication with God, and that we make it difficult with all of our, the ego thought system constantly coming in there, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, in my study buddy group this morning, we were reading chapter 2, part 6, Fear and Conflict. It's a really good part to read right now, that the correction of fear is our responsibility. and that we need help in removing the conditions that have brought the fear about. So that's not the coronavirus. That the conditions that made the fear come about are not the coronavirus. The conditions that made fear come about are, is our decision to leave God and think that we're separate. So the coronavirus is a gift then, because we know we're not separate now. The whole world has common interests. And I was just listening to Como in New York talking about the hospitals all sharing their resources, and now's the time to share resources. So I just continue to think it's an interesting moment in the illusion, but it's no more real or not real than what it was like before the coronavirus, which was just as much of an illusion as it is now. I mean, it feels weirder now because it's so unfamiliar to stay home and be faced with ourselves. But that's kind of like retirement. That's what I've been doing for 4 years, is learning how to not have a business, to learn how to just be Kathleen Hogan and part of God. And, just the whole spiritual journey that we're on. Just stop thinking and be in communication with God. Don't be afraid. If you get the virus, so what? You're going to be really, really sick, or you might die. You can't really die. But, anyway, I'm staying home. I'm doing all the things on the level of form, but I just appreciate all the focus on spirituality that's going on all over the world. I really, really, yeah, right on. So thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, and Phil, I think that kind of answers what you asked. Where does the learning through contrast fit in this picture? And the contrast is that we're not separate. We're not separate from each other. We're not separate from God. Yeah. Robin, would you like to share anything?
Oh my goodness. Hello everyone, and everyone has shared so beautifully and expressed my thoughts. And for me personally, I just highlighted so many things, and wanting always to know that instant, the holy instant, knowing that it's there for me. And I don't have to strive or seek. It's just there for me, waiting for me to make that choice. And I'm working on acceptance has come up. So acceptance on the grand scheme of things is trying to open my heart to an acceptance of a holy relationship with myself. And that way I can extend it to the world. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think we're all being called right now to take really good care of ourselves, to be loving and compassionate, to take good care of our bodies, to be diligent with the care of our minds and our thoughts, and to do the things that we know help us. That's my takeaway from all of this. So we're all being called to, be in the trenches. And in being in the trenches, it's beneficial for us to be ready, to make ourselves ready. Prepare ye the way of the Lord, right? Yeah. Anybody else have anything to share before we close out? Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I keep getting to read paragraph 6. I think it kind of rounds out the whole conversation from when Diane was talking, and how everybody's bounced around. And even when Kathleen, I kind of chuckled a bit, because as I was thinking of, I was listening, but as I was thinking of paragraph 6, and Kathleen's lips were moving, but I can't hear what you're saying, right? The song? So let's, maybe make sense as I read this in terms of how we're kind of to tune in, right? In the holy instant. Is it okay if I read it, Linda? Did we freeze?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, sorry. The reason this course is simple is that truth is simple. Complexity is of the ego and is nothing more than the ego's attempt to obscure the obvious. You could live forever in the holy instant, beginning now and reaching to eternity, but for a very simple reason. Do not obscure the simplicity of this reason, for if you do, it will be only because you prefer not to recognize it and not to let it go. The simple reason, simply stated, is this. The holy instant is a time in which you receive and give perfect communication. This means, however, that it is a time in which your mind is open, both to receive and give. It is the recognition that all minds are in communication. It therefore seeks to change nothing, but merely to accept everything.
Every stinking thing. Yep. It's all helpful. Well, I'm eternally grateful for all of you. And like Rand was talking about, the wisdom, the clarity that you all share, and the love and compassion that I can feel coming from each and every one of you. So I appreciate that. Next week, I'd like to continue in chapter 15, section 5, which is the holy instant and the special relationships. So that should be interesting during the next week. So my reading this week from Pathways of Light Insights is for lesson 91, which is miracles are seen in light. The part of my mind that remembers the truth is the strength in me. The part of my mind that makes illusions real is the part that feels weak, helpless, limited, and doubtful. My faith goes to what I want and instructs my mind accordingly. With this lesson, I am going through the process of putting my faith in the strength in me, the light in me. When I put my faith in the light, I see miracles. The miracle is always there, but I will only see it when I put my faith in the strength in me, the light in me. The Holy Spirit in my mind leads me to the light that I am, leads me to the strength that I am. As I open my willingness to be led by the Holy Spirit, I am able to feel this strength. I am able to feel the power of God's love. I am able to feel that I am not a body. At this point, this takes determined focus and determined practice. Right now, it seems all too easy to join with the weakness rather than the strength. This is a perfect lesson for me today. This lesson leads me very gently to a change of mind. This lesson helps me change my mind about what I put my faith in and about what I want to see and feel. The world is an illusion. There is no outside world. I am mind in the mind of God. This mind is stable and strong and invulnerable. This mind is all inclusive. This mind is what everyone is. Today I am willing to practice putting my faith in this mind. I am willing to practice remembering the strength in me, remembering the light that I am. In the light, I see through the eyes of Christ. I see the miracles where I once saw weakness. I see the truth where I once saw illusions. This lesson tells me that the light that shows me miracles is not the light that my body's eyes see. The light in which miracles are seen does not come from a finite source, like the sun or a light bulb. This light is all encompassing, for it is the light of love. In the first chapter of the text, it tells us that miracles are extensions of love. So of course, miracles are seen in the light of love. So I am learning here not to rely on the body's eyes to show me miracles. The body's eyes cannot see in the light of miracles. Yet I am assured that I am entitled to miracles. Therefore, I must not be limited by the body and its abilities to perceive. I must not be a body. What am I? Asking this question is an important step in letting go of identification with a false image. If I believe I already know what I am not open to instruction or learning. I am not open to another perception of my little self, thinking I am separate and identified with a body. I cannot answer this question, but there is a part of my mind that already knows the answer. By asking the question, I open my mind to be taught. Today, I would let go of the uncertainties that come with believing I am a body. I am willing to be open to a new perception of what I am. I have experienced moments of feeling deep love and offering it to others. It is a feeling of power and safety. It is this strength that I would accept as my own. Today, I will practice walking with the awareness of the light that surrounds me, that I may see the miracles of love's extension wherever I look. Sometimes I feel so far from my true self that I cannot imagine how I will get back to it. I think to myself, what am I? And I just draw a blank. I felt very encouraged to read the line that says that doing this alone would be impossible. Wow, what a relief to know it is not just me. Evidently, everyone needs help. And what wonderful news that we have strong support in our efforts. I also appreciate the emphasis on my strength. I don't feel very strong, and this is a great excuse for my ego to use to discourage me from trying. It is my extension to experience the strength of my will today, and not the weakness that I have believed in for so long. I have been thinking I am struggling with a chronic health problem lately. As I worked my way through this lesson today, I realized why I don't think I am seeing the miraculous healing. I am not seeing truly. I'm going to try to put faith in the light because miracles are seen only in light. Thank you, everybody. See you all next week. Much love to you all. Stay smart, stay safe, stay well.
Thanks,
Thank
Linda.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Linda. I
Thanks,
have a
Linda.
question.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure, Holly, go ahead.
What were you just reading from?
It's from Pathways of Light. They have insights to the workbook lessons. So if you just Google Pathways of Light workbook lessons, I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Okay.
And that was lesson 91.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. Kathleen, how is Paul doing? I'll shut the recording off.